Welcome, everybody. So we are going to do a coach's corner. Elizabeth has a interest in everybody's take on the recode.
Today's date.
About it.
Today's date. What is today's date? It's 12.
December 29th.
December 29th, 2020. The year of the awakening. That's what I'm calling it. We're just ending it. So we're all awake now. Let's talk about it.
So we are all coaches that use the magnetic mind method and the Superconscious Rapid Recode as tools in our coaching practices. We deliver it online, and we're going to have a conversation about the recode and what it is, what it does, and why you should care. So Elizabeth, if you want to start us off with what's your question about it? What's your query? What do you want to talk about in terms of the recode?
Well, my question to you was, there are, basically with the recode, there are 3 memories. And in one of the processes, it speaks about the superconscious and the, I believe, subconscious being the same and being passed down through family. So if you could explain that for me, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. So at the very beginning, the 3 memories. Now, you have to watch what your definition of memory is. And here is Ruth. With the memories, you want to, it's 3 different areas of consciousness is what it is. And they're referred to as memories because it's where memories are stored, meaning it's a mental processing area. So you've got the part of you that is kind of on autopilot, right? It's got all of your feelings. It's got all of the patterning that it's learned, all of the automatic behaviors. That is your unconscious or your subconscious mind. And in magnetic mind, they're used interchangeably. So if that is in your subconscious, you've got all of these preset programs that kind of run the show. It's a preset program on, your circulatory system and your muscle memory, your walking and eating and talking, and when you do it enough, driving. Anything that's been a repeated behavior over time can be transferred. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's transferred into your subconscious, and it's just kind of on autopilot. So that's the subconscious, and a lot of those presets are information that has been passed down through the family. So there are certain ways of behaving, and when you are when you're among your people, if you will, if you're around your family, the young children of a family catch on very quickly if they're not already born to behave in a way that's acceptable for that family. Does that make sense? So that's the subconscious part, and that's the piece that is passed down. It's a pattern. It's a inherited behavior, and like some people call it, it's like a talent that runs in a family. It's like, oh, that whole family, they're all good mechanics, or they're all really good at this, that, or the other, right? there's usually a tendency in a family that the people born into that family have a built-in knowledge, understanding, artistry, or talent that is included in the genetic makeup of the offspring in that family. Patrick, did you want to weigh in on the subconscious?
Yeah, so I like the input that you gave. That kind of covers the family ecology part of it, but also there are beliefs that are instilled in us between the ages of 4 and 7. And this can be just like an event. Like I'll use my brother as an example. He had an event happen while he was in daycare. And as a result of that event, he now like has an extreme social anxiety. And he has a hard time even speaking to people. But this can be recoded using our rapid recode process.
Yeah, because that, bearing in mind, so to that point, because he was so young, you don't develop your conscious mind or your ego or your reasoning and your thoughtful mind until you're about, between the ages of 4 and 7. So young children, and it's often referred to as the formative years, but young children don't have the capacity to reason. They're learning patterns. They're learning fundamental basic skills on how to stay alive in this world. And they're looking for patterns. They're looking for how to be and how it is. And they learn and code up those learnings very, very quickly. Some of them they've inherited, and there's a bunch of them that they're just watching all the time from birth forward to sometime between 4 and 7. And all of that learning just gets dumped into autopilot. And it's not something that you can always control, or like as a parent, you can be mindful of it, but there's a lot of learnings that were misunderstood because it was a toddler mind, and just the lack of their ability to reason and rationalize and think things through. It puts everybody in a position of needing to understand that sometimes your feelings and your automatic responses and your preset programming, they don't make sense because they weren't thought through, because they were created and locked in by like a 4-year-old. So they can be really difficult to get at. And the only way you know that they're there and they're in your way, because we know that your feelings reside in your subconscious. So if your feelings are in your subconscious, you've got these feelings popping up and you don't know where they're from and they don't make any sense, then there's a couple of ways that you can address the subconscious. And a lot of people already understand that talk therapy is for reasoning and getting your thoughts clear and trying to make sense of things and thinking things through. And if you can't do that, you can't get at the issue with talk therapy, it's very understood that repeated behavior can reprogram a subconscious. Cognitive behavioral therapy is an approach that people take. Hypnosis addresses the subconscious directly. And so those two things can help. And you've got your rational mind, and that's your thinking, reasoning, logical brain. And that classified as another memory. So you've got your subconscious memory and you've got your conscious memory, and it's your ego or your self-conscious, your awareness, and your logic and your reasoning. And if you're having trouble sorting out your thoughts and what you are going to think or how does that make sense, It's fairly well accepted that people go to therapy for that, and they talk it out and sort out what they think about something. Sometimes it's not about what you think, and sometimes it's buried down in the subconscious. So what we also have is a third memory, and it's a third level of ourselves. It's our own mind. It's the part of you that can observe yourself. So when you're evaluating yourself and noticing how you think, or you're noticing your behavior, you're noticing your feelings, you can kind of observe how you're living your life in any given moment. That part of you that also inspires, drops ideas into your head. You're just carrying on your regular day, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I've got it. It just came to me. Well, where did it come from? If it just came to you, the information was there. You say, people will say, oh, I knew it. Oh, I knew that. Of course you did. You knew it because it was in your superconscious. So the superconscious is that higher self. It's the higher observing self. And so what's in your superconscious information, it's the part of you that designed your body, that instructed all the cells to go where they needed to go. It knew how you were going to be put together. It assembled your brain. It's the part of you that was you before you existed. The intelligence that assembled you, that put you together, that can observe you. It's a little removed, and it's sometimes referred to as a higher self. Now, there's not been a lot of long-term research, but there's been enough theory, there's been enough research to understand that there is a field of information, a cloud, if you will, of information that surrounds any living thing and instructs it how to grow, how to process, it knows what nutrients you need. It knows how to pull those nutrients out of food sources. It knows how to move and live and be. But your superconscious doesn't have feelings. It's just got all of the information. So it's almost like the programmer. And the recode works on the premise that all of the information, it got there because it was handed to you, passed down through your family, right? You were created, and that information from your family, the beliefs, the feelings, the auto programming, all of the information from your parents and their parents and the parents before them, right down the line. It's been shown that it's up to 7 generations with Hellinger's family ecology work. It's probably more than that, but that's all he had to work with. And all of that information, if you understand that the information is passed down, and then you understand that there's a field of information around you, and that all of the quantum physics, there's all of these different pieces and parts of research that all come together to create the recode. And the recode is a little bit like, when you do hypnosis and you're talking to, you'll see a hypnotherapist addressing the inner child, right? And what we're doing is we are opening up a dialogue with the superconscious. And that is uncommon to have a conversation with the superconscious. It's just, been realized that theoretically it exists, and we could perhaps engage with the superconscious, and by extension, if the superconscious built your brain, then and it assembled you, and it handles regeneration, it handles all body systems, it handles the chemical releases in your brain, the synapse paths, all of everything that is you was programmed by the superconscious. So opening a dialogue with the superconscious to say, okay, this isn't helping me anymore. Can we reprogram this piece? Can we move this thing out of the way? Or I don't know where this belief came from, but it no longer serves me. There's a lot of people have terrible time putting those things down, stepping away from them, because to reprogram the subconscious in the old school way, it takes 21 days to break a habit, and you need to replace it. But how do you get rid of the one that was there, except for overwriting the program? So with the recode, we go in and we open a dialogue with the superconscious, keeping the instruction very, very clear, like we're talking to a toddler, just to make sure that it's clear and concise and that the request is received. So all of that stuff in the field, superconscious built, and the subconscious is storing. So when you're talking about the family ecology piece of it, it would be the genetic makeup, anything in the DNA, and it would be anything in the response to stimulus because of the DNA. So that's where it's subconscious and superconscious that hold a lot of the family entanglements. Does that
And
make
so-
any sense?
It makes perfect sense, Sarah. I would just like to I want to reframe something. Maybe, because the same question was presented to me just a few days ago, and the easiest way I could describe it is that the recode name, the recode process, why is it revolutionary? Why is it different? And Sarah just explained why it's different. We're working on that third level of consciousness. And basically what it is you can work for years trying to fix the subconscious. Hours and hours of meditation and hypnotherapy in the ear at night, and books and practice, and it's so hard, and it's a lot of long, expensive work. The recode is a shortcut, because we're going to the boss, the big honcho of you, and asking them, superconscious, could you simply move this to here, get that out of the way so we can move on happily? And the superconscious says, well, I would love to do that for you right here and now. Shortcut.
The
It can be done.
superconscious is like just sitting there. It's the observer. It's the part of you that watches the show. So your superconscious is sitting there with the popcorn, just watching the show. And it's like, hey, dude, like up in the programming booth, could you do a thing for us? And he's like, what? You're talking to me?
Right. So it's the shortcut. It's the shortcut. Rather than spending all the money and doing all the stuff, we can simply do a recode to do things much smoother, I call it the upgrade. It is the personal development upgrade. It is the last personal development you'll ever need.
And the thing is that, and it's also a very common phrase and a common wisdom that nobody can change another person. You can only change yourself. And that is absolute fact. All we're doing is we are opening a dialogue with a level of consciousness that is not typically addressed, saying, hey, and it's still you, but because it's the you that was you before you had a name, it's easier to target the conversation at the superconscious by saying, by giving it its formal superconscious name, and just asking, this is causing a problem, and your human that you're watching, dude, you're watching this human have a life, and they're struggling, and this human wants to do this cool thing because it would be amazing. So that thing's in the way. And it's like, oh, okay. It's like, could you move it out of the way? Yeah. Okay, well, would you do that, please, and make sure it doesn't come back in the way? Sure. And it's really that straightforward, because the thought processes and all of the experiences are held inside the mind. And so your imagination, your imagined future, and your remembered past are one and the same type of memory. They're just clusters of emotion and feeling and imagery that evoke a particular feeling that triggers a chemical release in your brain that promotes action. And some feelings are very useful to have. Depending on your circumstance, you want to be able to feel them all. But when they're in your way of having a happy, satisfied existence and life, and living your life to the fullest, then it's much swifter to just recode, and it's like blazing a path around. Let's just not trigger that anymore. Can we just take a different route through the brain and wire up some new synapses and go that way? And
Okay. Sarah, thank you. That was, if I let Sarah go, we could be here till midnight, because that was a perfect, she answered that question beautifully and fully, and then some. So I know there are some people kind of chewing at the bit to ask some questions.
So let's go back to Elizabeth, and I want to know if that was if that was a complete enough answer, or do you want me to jump down a different rabbit hole? Please. Oh, you're on mute, love.
There I am. Okay. So no, that's totally understandable. And that's exactly how I understood it to be. I guess my question to you was maybe just the way that it was written. It sounded as if it was two in the same, and I didn't see it as two in the same. Although it's one, because it's the oneness. It's the creator of the all. So it just didn't appear to be that to me in the verbiage.
So if what was presented suggested that superconscious and subconscious were one and the same?
No, that's the way it sounded.
So then that doesn't sound like that statement would be true.
Correct. Exactly. And that's why I asked you, because I don't see it to be true.
Now, there's been some different processes and different coaches label those three memories different things. So where you get a self-conscious or a conscious mind or a reasoning mind or an ego, then you have an unconscious mind. And in the magnetic mind training, it's always referred to as an unconscious as opposed to subconscious.
Right, because I see it as unconscious, unaware.
Yeah. So it's unconscious, but it is also subconscious, meaning it's beneath the conscious mind, right?
Correct.
And this conscious mind is labeled self-conscious because it's got an awareness of self.
Correct.
And so then the superconscious supersedes all of it. It's super,
Correct.
literally superseding. So
Correct.
as long as that can be peeled out of the question so that you can see what's being referred to where. But yeah, it's they're not one and the same, although family entanglements does hit both.
Correct. Exactly.
But I mean, we could go into family entanglements on a different call, but it also hits the
that's fine.
logical reasoning mind, where you're
Correct.
trying to make sense of what to think about something because of your family learnings.
Correct. Exactly. Which some people would call the change that,
Hereditary, it runs
you
in
know,
the family.
correct. Yeah.
Family curse. I mean,
The
they call
family
it
curse.
everything.
Yeah,
They call
break
it
the
everything.
bonds. Yeah, break the bonds that bind you. Exactly.
Does
Exactly.
anyone
And those are all the learned things. So, and that's exactly what, we've learned. And through the superconscious is how we unlearn them. We remove those barriers so that we're able to abide in the superconscious field of awareness.
and it doesn't need the learnings were useful, they were helpful, they got you this far. It's all amazing
Believe it.
information being held in your mind. Just
Right.
because it's in the way doesn't mean that it necessarily needs to be blown up. Or it
Correct.
could just be moved out of the way,
Correct.
right? And so
Exactly.
a lot of
Yeah.
people think, oh, you're brainwashing, or, there's some alarm in there. And it's like, no, we're just like, we're taking a boulder from your
Sarah,
past.
my superconscious just gave me a beautiful metaphor. If you can imagine, if you can picture a piece of blank paper as the unconscious mind, the painter is the superconscious. The paintbrush is the superconscious. And the picture, the superconscious, it needs the subconscious to paint it on, but the picture itself is the conscious mind.
Oh, I love that.
The paintbrush needs the unconscious mind to work through to create the conscious mind, the picture.
Right, because yes, and the way that I see it is, everything is created by you, for you, through you.
Correct.
And all of that is to take you to the level, to the superconscious field
Right on.
of
Yep.
awareness. So,
Yep.
Right.
yes.
And do you notice how we don't get into who's the painter?
No,
That's everybody's personal
Right.
exactly.
understanding and relationship with
Absolutely.
whoever their painter is.
And
Right.
it's
We
still,
don't get into who the painter is.
but it
We're
still
just dealing with
backs
the
up.
paper,
But-
the brush, and the picture.
Right, but it still backs up that something, the divine, the whole collective field, something's moving the paintbrush, right? That's what's debatable, right? But so,
Right.
but yeah, but that's what the that's what the superconscious, that was the metaphor it sent me for that.
I love that. Does anyone else, Heather, do you want to weigh in on the 3 memories and the recode? Oh, you're muted too. There you are.
I think you guys are doing a great job. I love that last metaphor too. That's nice. I'm not sure if you said it, but like just that the superconscious has all of the information. All of the information is there. We just need to tune into it to access it, and it just takes practice. I guess that's the only other thing I would add.
It does.
Nikki, did you want to weigh in on recode?
Yeah, no, I'm just as curious, just to always, yeah, I mean, more or less, I have understanding. It's just, yeah, I was just listening to what everyone else was saying right now. So I
All
don't
right.
have actual, I don't have like a question, but I'm just listening. I'm just observing right now because it's interesting, very interesting.
Isn't it also interesting?
Very.
And for me, what works works, you know, and it's just an undeniable impact
Indeed.
when you give a recode a try and you understand the theory behind it and you
Mm.
allow it to work, things change.
Yeah,
Right.
and
And
I think to add to that, if I might, you know, what we mean by allowing it is allowing a recode is where we're in the field of awareness, and in the field of awareness, we're all one. Okay, consciousness is one consciousness, and that is the super consciousness. So it's just one big, huge field that we're all able to access. Okay, it's something everyone can access. And what we basically do is we access that field and we assist another in removing certain things in their life by the superconsciousness, not by us. It's not what we do, it's what superconsciousness does for
well,
them.
they're doing it inside their own
Correct.
mind,
Through them.
right?
Exactly.
Because nobody can actually get into someone
and-
else's brain.
Correct. And it's not even the mind, it's the non-physical aspect of the superconscious that knows everything about that person because it's in that field.
Because
So-
it created that
because it
person.
created that. Yes. So
All of the information for that individual came from there. And so there's
yes,
there's an
potent.
omni awareness of that person and everything
Exactly.
affecting.
All of its DNA, everything that has accessed that particular field, even in past lives. So it's able to connect to that. We simply connect to that field with them and assist them through their
Well, it's,
consciousness.
you know, the way I've explained it to a few clients in an effort to come up with some illustration of what we're doing, it's like I've compared the superconscious to the Maytag repairman. Nobody's ever asked him to do anything before. He knows how.
Yes.
Nobody ever asked. It's like, oh yeah, but he's got. The thing is that the superconscious, someone else's or a client superconscious, or someone who's not trained in understanding how to go about doing this and that it's possible.
Mhm.
When we come in and we address someone's superconscious, and we're like, hey, Maytag repair guy, you know, can you do me a solid because they're suffering over here? Can you rearrange some things? Can you take the squeak out of the dryer kind of thing? The superconscious is entirely willing, but isn't equipped or trained to understand how to untangle or how to rearrange from something that just kind of happened. It's like just watching an ant farm. It's like, well, I don't know how to make them go that way.
Right. And that's
but
why
I'm
that's why we give the metaphor, right? The client always
Right.
needs the metaphor. The superconscious needs the metaphor to know, to be able to do that. I think of my superconscious as a magic wand.
Yes.
And once it's told what to do, it does the work.
Indeed.
Once
so
it understands what it needs to do.
and sometimes the unconscious needs a little more explanation on, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing there? Why are you moving that stone out the way? Right?
Right,
Maybe
It's like,
because
oh,
it
no, you
makes
don't touch
sense.
my stone. I
Right,
put that there.
right.
It's important.
Right.
Right,
So,
or it
right.
believes it's important. And
Yeah.
that's where the resistance comes in
Right.
order for someone to move forward.
Right.
So, yeah,
But
exactly.
that's why we need the metaphor. That's why the metaphor is so important, is the that's how we learn to do things. And that's our superconscious is the same way. It needs to know, well, I'd love to fix that for you, but you have to tell me how. And so, like, I
And
always use the
showing
river
a
of desire.
metaphor
Right.
is
Go ahead.
metaphors and parables and story are
Yes,
just age-old ways of relaying a concept,
Yes.
illustrating a concept. So we can give a metaphor and then superconscious understands the request
mhm,
right out of the gate. Okay, we're trying to get sticks and boulders out of a river. Cool.
yes.
Okay, where's the boat? What are we doing? And they're on board, right?
Right,
I've also compared it to, if you are going in to inspect a house that is under renovation and the homeowner's there, and you go in and the contractor's there and all of his subcontractors are there. And you walk in and you're like, okay, what's going on? And the homeowner says, well, it's just not quite right. It's not the house I wanted. And you're like, okay, so can I talk to your general contractor? Superconscious. And it's like, get a clipboard, come along. And you're like, can you do this? And that window needs to be moved. And there's a thing here and this over here. And you're putting post-it notes on all of these things that need addressing. And sometimes it's the general contractor's like, well, that's plumbing. It's like, okay, well, do you have the plumber here? Yeah, well, he's over there. Go wake him up. Wake him up. He's sitting on his lunchbox. Go get him. And we're going to do this. And so you can go through and you can tag and tell the contractor, the homeowner's there to authorize and say, yeah, okay, this is what I want.
right,
And has the ultimate authority. But, that general contractor may be like, well, I don't have the tools to do that. But as the coach, as the coach who's doing the recode, we walk in with a tool belt full of neuroplastic tools
yes.
where
Everything needed.
we've got pieces from EFT
Yeah.
and 2-point process and NLP and quantum healing and Gestalt therapy and all of these different things.
Indeed,
And we come in loaded with tools. And if that general contractor says, oh, it's going to take me a minute, it's like, here, use this tool. Would you like me to show you how it's used? And we can transfer our knowledge and our training onto
indeed.
that, into that superconscious. And then it's equipped to help the human that was needing the boulder moved out of the way.
Correct.
So I find that that's one of the easier ways of explaining what we're doing to a client, but still to the superconscious. It's the river of desire and being in the current reality and wanting to get to the desired reality, but there's things
Boulders in
that
the way. Right,
there's sticks and boulders in the way, and could you take them out in the perfect way, in the perfect order, and just get them out of the way enough for us to get to where we want to go?
correct.
And we don't want to go back into the woods, so it's okay, put them on the shore. I don't care where you put them, just not in my way, right?
Correct.
And I find the elegance of the recode and all of the little bits of information and all of the learnings about how the mind processes information and everything from all of the research that's been done. It's
Yeah.
such an elegant, it looks so simple, and it is anything but. Heather, what did you want to
Oh, I just was gonna say, I guess if somebody does happen upon this video, that sometimes the shifts don't happen like during the recode. Like we've seen a lot of people have the shifts like immediately almost.
Mhm.
Like, or you can see like in their facial features, like just a relaxation or a brightening. Sometimes just, you know, a lot of emotion coming out. But for myself, it sometimes takes, you know, a few days, and then I'll just notice, you know, okay, I'm not panicking about, you know, bills that I have to pay, or, you know, things like that, or whatever you had emotion tied to before. It's
Right. Like the fears have come down and you haven't been overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And it does take time sometimes, depending on the recode and what part you're accessing. Because some parts could need a whole lot more time. Some can take up to a week for it to fully transmute. So yeah, I agree.
and even sometimes you need additional recodes around the same thing if we're only allowed, if superconscious can only treat like 10% of the pain, if the event was too traumatic to treat all at once.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you're
Yeah.
never going to allow any part of yourself to destabilize you, you know? So if it needs to have a little off of this side, a little off of this side, move it a little bit, and chip away at it in order to keep you solid and balanced, then
Mhm.
that's what it takes. And
Exactly.
sometimes you've got, you know, a strong enough stance in where you're headed and what you're doing, and your subconscious and the deeper parts of your psyche are genuinely engaged and willing to hold you up while you knock this thing out from in front of you.
Right.
You could have a major shift, and it feels like with the energy moving through you, you get body sensations, or you get all of these feelings popping up and floating by, and it's just like being in a bit of a strange dream where
Correct.
you've got, you know, this
Yeah.
these
I call
waves
that,
and feelings,
yeah, I call that the dream within a dream.
right?
That's exactly what I call it. Yeah. A dream within a dream. And the beautiful part about the recode is, you know, our end result. The end result is to get all parts to meet with the main character. So it's to
And the
bring
fact
you
that,
into, it's to bring you into a better way of living, you know, desired way of living. So
I find it just so empowering, because at no point do we entertain fixing a problem.
no,
You
we're
know,
not problem
just like,
solvers. Correct.
you tell us, you know, what do you want? Not even instead, but just stop whatever you got focused on right now. Just
Mhm.
stop and think about what you would like it to be, and then just start building it. Just get going, and we just clear the path in front of you as you go, and just take another step, and whatever you thought needed to be fixed is so far in the rear view mirror, it doesn't matter. It genuinely doesn't matter anymore, because what matters is being happy and living in a way that where you feel purposeful and fulfilled and healthy and vital and alive and loving life. And that is the aim of all of the recodes, no matter what you're doing.
Yes, all in this now moment, because that's the most important thing, is the now moment.
Well, thanks everybody for joining on this Coach's Corner about recodes.
Ew, thanks for the
Yeah.
invitation. Honored.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everybody.
Always,
was awesome.
always really fun to break stuff down and
Yeah.
revisit
think
things
so.
and
Thank
get
you, Sarah.
different input. It's wonderful. Thanks for everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Kim.
And can we make a group